Episode 15, The Deadline. Chapter 15, The Deadline.
I haven't been to the Abyss in a long time,
Alice said, skipping along as they entered the terminal in Ikebukuro.
Everybody kept working to make it better, so maybe it'll be awesome this time. It is easy to get lost in,
Neburos said, then coughed.
Lots of ways to go, lots of things to see. We'll have to be careful, you see, to avoid losing each other. I really should report into the castle,
Belial said.
Thanks for letting us do this, Kazuya. It's fine,
he said, activating the terminal.
Since you're going there, could you take one of my other demons along? It's this Joker, he's been affected by glitches from earlier versions of the summoning program and fusion, causing him to mutate at random. We thought the Abyss might be the best place to sort himself out. That's interesting,
Neburos said.
We should be able to figure things out there. I have some friends who could help out. Sounds like the kind of thing you might have to get Lucifer on,
Belial said.
We'll certainly do that if our methods don't work out,
the necromancer said, turning his head with pride.
I've not accessed the Abyss, so I'm not sure how to get it on the list,
Kazuya said, stepping away from the control panel to call out Joker.
I might be able to work this,
Neburos said, going to it to try some things out. Joker had the styling of a harlequin, from the oversized three-pointed hat with bells to the curled toe shoes. But the pattern of his cloth was tiny black, white, and grey squares that made him appear like geometric static.
Could you not call me out much?
He asked.
I rather like this form. Actually, Neburos might be able to help you maintain it,
Kazuya said.
I normally work with the dead, but this is too intriguing to pass up,
Neburos said, looking at the terminal.
We just need to be in the Abyss to have better results. And we're gonna play fun games and have big adventures all through there.
Alice said, delightedly twirling around.
Ah, yes, as long as you don't get lost,
Neburos said carefully.
Right, we'd rather not lose each other,
Belial lied blatantly. Alice didn't seem to notice.
Which means I'm letting the four of you go to return to the Abyss,
Kazuya said to Joker. Joker called out a trick dagger and twirled it in his hands.
Is that so? I seem to think this has been fun, Kazuya. At least, that would explain why I felt I should follow your wishes. But if you would like to see me stabilized to stay this way, that's wonderful news to me. I'm sorry I can't do anything more for you, other than to wish you luck in keeping this form you like,
he said. Joker smiled at him, then flipped his knife up. He snapped his fingers and caught something different, a small silver apple.
My memories are hazy, yes, but the voices around me say that you are kind to demons who don't harm humans. I know that to be truth, that your wish is authentic. So, here.
He tossed the apple over.
Keep it on you, and its scent will let lesser demons know that. It won't dissuade all of them, but most, wild ones especially, will be friendlier with you as a result. Thank you, Joker,
Kazuya said, catching the apple easily.
Oh, neat trick,
Alice said, bouncing over to Joker.
Where'd you get the apple?
Calling back his dagger, Joker shrugged.
Don't know. I just have this trick that lets me call on some items like that. The silver apple is one of the few benevolent ones. They should grow in Bina,
Belial said.
Well, I've found an access channel to Hod, which is rather far from Bina, much less the castle,
Neburos said.
I usually do my work in Netsach myself, should be able to reclaim my old lab as long as crazy old Crowley hasn't taken it over. Hod's fine,
Belial said, going up the steps to the terminal plate.
And I can kick Crowley out if he gives you trouble. Let's go. Oh, are you gonna take me to Bina and the castle, Mr. Red?
Alice said, bouncing back to him.
Sure, just beware of teleporters on the way,
Belial said with a tricky smile.
Goodbye,
Joker said, giving them a bow before going onto the transporter plate as well.
Oh yeah, bye Kazuya, bye Yuka.
Alice said, giving them a wave as Neveros was activating the terminal.
Goodbye,
Kazuya said, waving to them. Once they were gone, he smiled in relief.
Well, they were helpful, but I'm glad to be free of Alice's demands now.
Yuka chuckled.
She'd be adorable if it were at all possible to teach her why people are afraid of death. So how did you con her into this trip to the abyss without us idea?
He said, putting an arm around her.
Wasn't that hard,
she said, her eyes gleaming mischievously.
I just phrased all we had to do like it'd be one big chore after another, and then encouraged her when she started talking about how fun the abyss was. She's powerful, yes, but she did want us to die and I'd rather not have our bodies turned to her playthings after that. True, though now I have to go on a recruiting spree to make up for them,
he said. Then the terminal room lit up briefly again. While he closed his eyes against that, he wondered if it was Alice again. It might just be someone else who could use the terminals, but who? When he could look again, there was a familiar demon there, a white-furred canine with 3 heads and a serpentine tail.
Huh, Pascal.
He wagged his tail and came right over.
Kazuya, you're here.
He dropped down to hug his 3-headed dog, getting licked for it. Tears were in his eyes.
Thank goodness, I'm glad to have you back again. I waited patiently for a chance to return, and here you are waiting for me,
Pascal said happily.
This is the best day.
This was all going as planned. Alan had been tied up painfully, with his elbows tied to a rope around his back, which itself was tied to a rod that was pulled into his back if he tried to move his arms too much. He was somewhat lucky they hadn't put a spiked rod there instead. Then they had put chains on his ankles that forced him into a slow small step. They had left the robes he had gotten as the Messiah on him, but it was clear that was because they were white and anything that got thrown at him in these halls would stick out readily. They were out to humiliate him. They even invited people from other towns, if inviting meant kidnapping them and dragging them into the audience just to see him fall. This was still going as planned. There was a lot of heckling as he got dragged into the courtroom. There was a small part of him that was uncomfortably reminded of bullies in school and heckling he had gotten before. But, he couldn't let that hold him back now. This time, he could know with confidence that God was on his side. And God would see him through this. It was all as planned, by God's plan. Typhon, the father of many monsters, smiled smugly at him from his judging throne.
Well now, look at who else we've dragged in today, the human slave to the tyrannical god who claims to rule over all. Fool, we demons have already overtaken this world and are making it our own. We cannot have a bland little sheep like you bleating out the same tired tunes. We are simply declaring you guilty of trying to steal this world from us when we have rightly taken it back. But if you care to, I will be gracious enough to let you say something for yourself before I put an end to your life.
Typhon then stood up to deafening cheers from the audience. While he wore nothing but a leather belt, his muscles and skin seemed like they would stop normal weapons entirely. He brought out a massive sword that looked more like an oversized meat cleaver than anything else, right down to spatters of blood all over it. With a gesture of his arm, he threw aside the flimsy gate in front of him and walked down to carry out his intended execution. However, it would be Typhon who was executed here.
You are only imitating the power of God, who can do anything,
Alan said. Typhon narrowed his stormy eyes at him, readying his execution tool. A door opened behind Alan, but it was only faintly on his mind. Now. The rope on his left elbow suddenly fell off, letting Alan throw the rod that had been bound to him right into Typhon's body. The chains on his ankles were cut as well, letting him draw the kodachi and make a quick attack at Typhon's sword arm as he reflexively brought it in too late from the rod throw. For a moment, things were in slow motion as the Titan tried to slice at his chest. The grit to his expression showed that he wasn't expecting this in the least. He should have. Alan wouldn't be able to by himself, but he jumped right over the slow swing and slashed quickly at Typhon's face, 3 times. And with a 4th thrust into his neck, Typhon collapsed to the ground, his heavy sword clashing to the ground. The demon judge faded away into dark ashes as his power struggled to remain. That struggle was in vain as he vanished entirely, leaving an imprint of his fallen body on the floor. As he landed, Haniel made himself visible to the audience. The whole room, packed with humans and demons, had gone utterly silent at the turn of events they were finding hard to believe. Haniel gestured to him.
All ye disbelievers in this room, this is the power of faith, the devotion of those who believe. If you cannot match this, I would suggest re-examining the state of your soul. My God, you killed Typhon,
Jin said, behind him. He was here, then. Alan turned around and nearly didn't recognize him, not without his glasses or that weird long coat. From the looks of him, he must have gotten his wish and was turned into a demon. A giant scorpion at his side hissed with its head held low, seeming ready to attack.
We couldn't let his perverse form of justice stand,
Alan said. Haniel put a hand on his shoulder.
Yes, but we have business elsewhere. This demon only has a week left to live, so there is no reason to bother with him.
Only a week? Alan hadn't liked Jin, but this didn't sit well with him. He had wanted to have faith in Kazuya's belief that Jin could be a good person if he changed his ways.
Really? You're just trying to scare me,
Jin snapped, drawing out his black axe while the scorpion waved its axe-headed tail.
That can't be true. It is because your body cannot maintain stability from the vein fusion you performed on yourself,
Haniel said.
Once that armor cracks, your time left could be measured in hours. Leave him, his own folly will do him in.
Was that really all that could be done? Alan had a feeling that the miracles he had been granted would fail for Jin.
I'm sorry, Jin, I really wanted to save you too,
Alan said, putting a hand to his chest.
I felt like you could become a better person if you just let yourself. I don't believe either of you.
Jin screamed, then rushed at them. If it wasn't for Haniel's quickness in teleporting them out of there, it might have been the end of them. On the day Kazuya was to meet up with Masakato, the cathedral appeared in the bay in its full glory. Yuka had called him out to the roof as the sun was rising to see. Even from where they were, the massive structure could be seen out over the water. With some binoculars, the white walls and golden tiles could be seen clearly. On the very top, a huge golden cross surrounded by a sunburst stretched its shadow clear across the city with the first appearance of the daylight.
That is unreal,
Kazuya said.
How long have they been working on that? Even with lots of workers, that kind of structure is really complex even on land. 20 years, at least,
Yuka said.
Of course, it may have been a pipe dream from before the cataclysm too. It'll certainly sway people to their cause,
he said. Pascal nudged him with one of his heads so Kazuya pet him.
Actually, Alan's been doing really well with convincing people to join the Messians. Jin's barely talked about, but everyone seems to know who Alan is now, even if only as the Messiah. I'm not surprised, she said. Put in the right light, the teachings of Messiah are of great comfort to those who feel lost. And with everything humans have against them here, that's something they want deeply. Alan truly believes, even skeptics wouldn't doubt that. Now that he can produce miracles, people are going to flock to him. If more of them were like him, I might seriously consider going with them,
Kazuya said.
But a lot of the higher-ups are turning out to be the fire and brimstone sort who are quick to condemn others. That lecture we listened to the other day seemed designed to make listeners feel horrible about themselves. So you would follow Alan's Messiah, but not standard Messiah,
she said, jostling him with her elbow.
Sure,
Kazuya said, putting an arm around her.
If we told him how they dropped honoring you as a prophet after he showed up, then he'd go rebuke them. Maybe, he's still finding his confidence. He seems pretty confident as the Messiah, but I can see how that's a role for him,
Yuka said, leaning into him.
But now that the cathedral's here, they're going to be rushing him into summoning God. That doesn't sound like something that should be rushed,
Kazuya said.
Do you know what that entails?
She shrugged.
It could be all kinds of things. I suspect they'll sequester him up in the highest tower there, under the big sunburst, and just have him praying for days on end. But they'll also want to make a huge ceremony of it, so they could be doing all kinds of things around the city.
After a moment of quiet, she added,
So how are we going to go about finding Masakato? Can't I just cuddle here with you for the sunrise at least?
He teased her, then kissed her.
I'm not sure, but I think Yagatarasu will show up eventually. In that case, I suppose staying together up here will let the crow find us faster,
she said. He laughed, knowing it was an excuse, but it was one he didn't mind acting on. Fortunately, Yagatarasu came at an opportune time, when the morning sun was shining strongly across the golden roofs of the cathedral. Kazuya had to get his earpiece out to talk with the crow.
Good morning,
he said.
Good morning,
Yagatarasu said.
You have performed admirably. I am to lead you to the place of your final training. With this, you should be capable of passing the tests that will quickly arrive, within that shining place down the river. Thank you, where do we start?
He said, getting up with Yuka.
Here will be fine,
the crow said.
Come down to ground level and we'll begin.
They went down to where the old shrine that Nan had taken care of was. It was gone now, as was the path to the shrine past it. However, Yagatarasu was able to open up that path once again. It looked just as he remembered it, even down to the neatly trimmed hedges. And once they were inside, Yagatarasu changed. He was no longer a three-legged crow, but a familiar old monk.
Wait, you were the old man who gave me the golden apples?
Kazuya asked, not expecting this. He nodded.
I am. As I told you then, you were already being noticed and a difficult path lay before you. I took the opportunity to make sure you had a loving companion with you through this all. Even in ordinary circumstances, the paths of life are best taken with love, not solitude. That's true,
Kazuya said.
Thank you for that, I don't know how I'd be doing this without her. Yes, many things were made better because I could look forward to being with him again,
Yuka said. On the path there, they came across the calico Nikomata. Her tail split had shifted further down, although the two ends still moved in sync.
Oh, hello Kazuya and Pascal,
she said, coming over to rub at his ankle.
It's been a long time. It has, hello again,
Pascal said, sniffing her in a friendly way.
Not so much for me,
he said, stopping to pet her for a moment.
Are you taking care of this shrine now? Yes, there's not much a guardian cat can do against a nuclear strike,
Nan said, her ears briefly shifting in regret.
But this old man got me here in time and set me a new duty for this shrine. Perhaps when you humans get around to rebuilding shrines, I can find another out in the human realm to take care of. This will do for now. I'm glad you're all right,
he said. She flicked her tails and walked off, but he was pretty sure she was happy to see him too. He hadn't gone far into the shrine before. This time, Yagatarasu led him to the central room. Instead of an interior space, it led to a large stone garden. In the center of it, there was a regal man with a red scarf around his neck. Kazuya felt the calming music that he had always associated with this shrine grow as he came closer to him. Someone else might mistake him for a powerful but otherwise normal human, but he could feel a presence that Masakado bore. While he was clearly a deity, Kazuya felt sure that Masakado was on humanity's side in all this.
Welcome, Kazuya,
he said, opening his eyes as they came up onto the platform Masakado was using for meditation.
I've been watching the people of Tokyo for one like you. I do what I can as the city's guardian deity, but oftentimes, the city also needs a human guardian to guide others. You stood out to me when you chose to organize the mechanical beasts into defenders of mankind, not potential threats. Your decisions in the past few days have confirmed my assessment that you should be this generation's guardian.
That was what this was about? He had suspected something like that, which made him glad. He bowed to Masakado.
I'm honored that you would choose me for such a role. I'll accept it gladly.
Masakado nodded.
Good, I knew that you would decide quickly. Still, there is not much time left. The appearance of the cathedral is an ill omen for much of humanity. In 3 days, God will bring disaster to Tokyo again in the name of wiping out what's left and starting all over again fresh. That soon?
He asked, his heart beating nervously.
What can be done in that time? The Messian Church plans on bringing its new converts into the cathedral to protect them from the coming disaster, he said. But they too are feeling the pressure of time. Their young Messiah has already converted a great number to their flock, so many will be traveling to the cathedral. You should find it relatively easy to slip non-believers who would otherwise be left to die in with their numbers. Their proof is based upon a question of faith, not a sign. To that end, you should advise people to head to the cathedral regardless of their belief. That building should be large enough to take in a vast number of people, believers or not,
Kazuya said.
All right. Many of them know of me now and it shouldn't be hard to convince them. Especially since the church will be preaching disaster in the meanwhile,
Yuka said.
Good. But there's one more lesson for you to have the mastery of skill you will require,
Masakado said.
When you complete that, I will give you a proper weapon, not that practice sword. Thank you,
he said, then checked to make sure Yuka and Yagatarasu weren't in range. He also spotted Nan perched on one of the larger stones, observing them too.
I'm ready to begin your lesson.
Destiny Land. It used to be some strange living dream, like a child's imagination toppled over and scattered about the playroom. Now people said that it was a place to find your true destiny. Jin hadn't been all that interested in it before. But now that he knew he has so little time left. No, that couldn't be true. The angel was just trying to confuse him because of what he was. They couldn't know anything. However, the goddess who dwelt here would know, and she might even know a way out of it. She had to. He refused to believe he was going to die so soon.
You have terrible luck,
a disconcertingly cheerful voice said over the speaker.
Fuck off,
Jin grumbled.
How unfortunate for you. Try another way.
It teleported him again before he could get out of the way.
I'd like to choke whoever recorded those messages,
Jin grumbled.
Are you having a rough time with these halls?
A woman asked from a nearby hall. She had an incredible voice, the one that didn't need to say enticing things to be enticing. He looked over and saw that her body was exactly matched to her voice.
Yeah, this place was designed by a sadist,
Jin said.
It really seems that way, given the horrible color design everywhere,
she said, strolling over to him.
Anytime I try to get anywhere normally, it always thinks I have terrible luck. Well, someone like you shouldn't need luck,
he said, although he felt he was failing to be as suave as he wanted to be. She still smiled at him.
Normally not. And, there's a secret to this place. You don't actually need to go through all these messed up halls. When you do get lost, there is usually an easy way to get around in spite of it. Oh yeah? Well, I'm Jin, and I was told by Typhon that I could find his wife Echidna around here.
He brought out the medal that proved he was under Typhon's command. At least, if he wasn't dead.
Really? That's impressive, don't often meet guys who have authentic proof from Typhon.
She waved him into her little hall.
Then, come this way. I'm Ri, I do work for Echidna around here, so I know how to get around quickly. It's actually quite silly since the back way is so straightforward.
In fact, it was a series of maintenance halls that connected to stairwells in the corners. It was hardly a pretty place, but given how gaudy the rest of this building was, Jin found it a relief to have grey concrete and black metal to look over instead. At the top level, Ri led him to a massive room that could serve as an airplane hangar. Instead of airplanes, this room held a massive beast that could have eaten those planes. Two lengthy snakes seemed to be intertwined down there, but they met into one torso, that of a giant woman with fangs and pointed ears. She shook her dark blue hair and looked them over.
Ah, Ri, who have you brought to me now? This is Jin, one of Typhon's men,
she said, stepping aside for him.
Yes, he told me I should meet with you,
he said, showing the medal he had.
However, he was killed by the church's messiah yesterday.
She put her head closer to them.
Really? That is worrying. We did not suspect that the messiah they were predicting would be that powerful. Neither did I,
Jin said.
I traveled with him before and he always seemed like a bleeding heart wimp who needed protecting. Even when he got a decent weapon, he wasn't near as good as I was offensively in battle. Is that so? Then that, and the fact that you have Typhon's medal, shows that you are the one meant to fight him for us old gods. I am.
He said.
I mean, I won't say no to that. But,
No, he didn't want to appear weak or nervous in front of her. She was the mother of dozens of monsters that had tested mankind over eons. Maybe hundreds, or even more.
They may have only meant to confuse me, but the angel hanging around the Messiah said that I had a week at most to live. Is that true? Let's see.
Echidna brought her head even closer and sniffed him. The huge beads on her braids jangled as they hit each other. Once she was satisfied, she backed off.
They were right. Death is breathing down your neck.
No. No, he couldn't. The power that he had pursued so far would not be enough to stop this. Jin gripped his fists, trying to keep strong.
Is there anything I can do about that? Anything at all?
She tilted her head.
By my judgment, the only thing you can do is make the most of what little time you have left. Give everything you've got to bring down that Messiah before he brings God down here in person to take everything away from us again.
Frowning, she said,
Zeus degraded my husband and I, and then that Hebrew god went and degraded us all even further. My brood and I will do everything we can to stop him from reclaiming the world, but it is a daunting task for us.
There was no way to save himself? He wanted to scream and deny it all, or take everyone else down with him. There was no way he should be dying so soon. He'd never get to be 18 or make all that he had wanted to do with this power happen. But Jin realized with a terrible despair that no amount of pleading, screaming, or violence would change his fate. He really just had to make the most of what time he had.
How am I supposed to overcome this Messiah?
Jin asked, his voice trembling even as he tried to be stoic about it. Kazuya wouldn't let this fear show, even if it was him who knew his own death sentence.
He utterly destroyed Typhon. I'm not afraid of the guards always around him, not even the angels of them. But he has incredible power now. You have incredible power as well,
Echidna said.
If you can get him without his angel guard, you should be entirely capable of taking him down. And since you have so little life left, you should not be afraid to throw away everything when you finally get to face him. Take him down with your last actions, fight him to your last breath. When you muster that kind of determination, he will not be able to overcome you.
Make sure to destroy Alan even if the effort destroyed him. Well, if he was going to die anyhow, he may as well make something magnificent out of it.
All right, I'll do it. Good. Even now, we are carrying out the early stages of an invasion of the cathedral they're so proud of. Take Ri with you as your partner from now on, she is far more capable than she appears to be. You honor me, Lady Echidna,
Ri said, coming over and putting a hand on Jin's shoulder. And he'd get this gorgeous woman at his side? That might make things better.
Thank you.
Echidna nodded.
Once you get inside, you will likely meet with the 4 leaders of our invasion force. I have my own duties to carry out here. But those leaders will help you by distracting the powerful angels that God is sure to have stationed inside to watch over his Messiah. You will then be given the chance to find the glory that will turn you into an eternal legend. I won't fail you,
Jin said. He then got instructions on how to join the invasion force. He'd need to go by the Gaian temple to become an official member, but Echidna was able to send word ahead so it could be handled quickly. With that taken care of, he left Echidna's room and went with Ri back to the ground floor. He tried to focus on this invasion mission, to go and kill Alan. But it wasn't long before his thoughts got lost again about his impending death. Haniel had said it would be when his armor cracked, shortly afterward. His armor was still whole, for now. But, only a week, no, less than that, since a day had already passed. He hadn't thought about dying before, other than boasting that it didn't scare him. Now that it was hanging right there, breathing down his neck as she had said, it terrified him. Was there anything he could do to escape this?
We don't have to hurry to Winnow,
Ri said.
They'll need some time to prepare for your initiation. Anything you want to do? I can't think of anything,
he said. But there should be something he should get in with his limited time. There were lots of things he had dreamed of doing. Was any of it still possible in just 1 week?
Anything you want to tell me?
She said, putting her arm around him before they left the stairwell.
If she says I am to be your partner, I'm really happy with that, to be with our champion when he will become a legend. I'll do anything for you.
Maybe. He didn't have a lot of time left.
But if I tell anything, you might let it slip after my death.
Jin said. She shook her head.
No, I promise. If you tell anything to me that you don't want known, I won't let it be known. As your partner, your secrets will stay with me. I promise. Well, I'm mostly scared of dying still,
he said quietly, feeling like she'd keep that promise.
Lady Echidna made a good point, I should throw what I've got into taking out Alan. I'd like to do that. But, this is too much, I didn't think I'd be dying so soon. You won't die,
she said, leaning in and kissing him on the cheek.
Legends never die. Tales of your deeds will live on forever.
Tales weren't his life. Jin closed his eyes, still self-conscious about being caught crying even with a promise of lifelong secrecy. Ri drew closer, she was able to distract him from all that for a little while. But that still didn't change what was waiting for him, just around the corner.
How did you make such a huge building appear from nowhere?
A girl his age asked.
By the power of God,
Alan said. Although to be honest, he wasn't sure. He knew it had been built somewhere else because he had appeared there on returning to life.
We're all going there to pray for his return to Earth. And when he descends to be with us, the Earth will be remade, more beautiful than before. But what will happen to everyone outside the cathedral when that happens?
She asked. He couldn't answer that one. Not even the light within could help. Although, one of his guards had an answer.
The sinful ones will be destroyed in the process so that their taint is gone from the world. But that...
Alan started to protest. The guard gave him a rebuking look. Right, he was supposed to be the Messiah carrying out God's plan. But, was he really if he wasn't sure of things and didn't know if parts were right? But, it all had to make sense to God.
We'll save all that we can, but the hard-hearted who refused to change.
His throat tensed.
I hope they do change.
It was really hard to get back into his speaking and conversions after that. He tried to keep calm, he had to be the brave one who brought people back to where they belonged. But no matter what he should be, this town was a tough crowd. There were people openly associated with the Gaians among his listeners. While they weren't causing trouble yet, his guards were keeping close to him.
Where was your God when the whole world went mad and everything got wiped away with nukes?
A woman asked him suddenly, angrily.
Why does he wait until now to do anything for us? Is all that your God's plan? He just wants to divide everyone into his willing sheep and the outcasts he'll just burn to nothing no matter what they did.
He couldn't answer that. But he wanted to be able to.
That wasn't God,
he said, which he believed.
There were so many wicked people in the world, and their plans all created such massive tragedy.
Not now, he had to be strong for God. Had to. But he was weak and started crying.
It shouldn't have happened that way, everything lost. I saw those days. The darkness and madness I saw in people wasn't right. I prayed the whole time for God's light and love to return, even as my soul was drifting.
The woman who had thrown those hard questions at him was taken aback by his answer and his tears.
Oh, you're not like the rest.
One of his guards put a hand on his shoulder while another said,
We should withdraw for now, but please, give your futures some serious thought.
The guards then pulled him aside. Someone among the locals was generous enough to direct them to an empty room.
I'm sorry,
Alan said, trying to get a hold of himself.
You're doing fine,
one of the guards said to him, guiding him to sit in a couch there.
Their faith will grow seeing your sincerity, God must be pleased.
He shook his head. Why had he been called? The guards tried to comfort him, but their words just reminded him of the woman's accusations, the girl's questions. A real Messiah would have known what to say and do, he would have been strong enough to take the anger and gently respond. Alan was being sincere, teaching them what he knew. But, he was realizing that he didn't really know all that much. The door opened so one of the guards could tell them,
"There's a couple who wants to see you, Kazuya and Yuka."
They were here? Had they seen that?
"Let them in,"
Alan said.
"They aren't a part of the church, not that I can tell,"
the guard said, unsure of this.
"Their souls are special to God,"
he said, a bit angrily.
"And me. Please, let them in and leave us alone."
Either that was enough to convince the guards or they saw that they weren't talking him out of this. His friends were quick to sit down with him.
"What's the matter?"
Yuka asked. She had been a prophet, so she could understand.
"I can't do this,"
Alan said, shaking. But he didn't stop himself this time, not with them.
"But the whole reason I was given this second, no, third chance at life is to be the Messiah. I can't do it, though. I should be able to stand up to those accusations, I should know what to tell people. But I don't. I'm only 15, I don't know anything about what some of these people are asking me, but they're looking to me for answers I can't give them." "You're just 15.
Kazuya said, more worried about him. Alan nodded.
"I'm sorry, I thought you were older than that. It is a lot they are putting on you, for anybody. The guards are helping out, but they say things I wouldn't,"
he said.
"I want to help. But then, they're pulling me all over Tokyo to speak to people, hurrying me up according to some schedule they won't share. I'm not even sure where we are now, just that it's one of the contested towns and that makes everything harder when I have to face skeptics. Sometimes I can handle it, but I couldn't stop myself there."
Yuka put an arm around him, while Kazuya stayed on his other side.
"You are doing a good job, though," he said. "I've been watching over how the city is doing and the Messians are now the largest faction by far, all due to what you've done the past few days. There's even been talk about how a lot of people would love to hear from you again, but they don't want to listen to the sermons of other Messians. That's good, but when are they going to realize that I can't live up to their expectations?"
he said.
"It's fine, you can do this,"
Yuka told him.
"It'll be rough, I know. Some of the days they were relying on me were just awful and I wanted to run. And I did a few times, but I always came back because of God's teachings to help others. I loved reading some of the old scriptures about God being loving and forgiving, because it made me feel like I could be accepted no matter how much I messed up. That's what I most believe in too,"
Alan said, bowing his head.
"It's what I want to teach the people. But the priests and guards keep saying other things and making me wonder if I'm wrong somehow. Or if they're believing in an entirely different God, that's how it felt to me,"
Yuka said. "And? Entirely different God?"
"But there's only one true God, and He."
Who was right though? He and Yuka, or the priests? It should be the priests because they were older and more learned, but the old version was a comforting light. In contrast to the bright blinding light of the new. Alan buried his face in his hands.
"Oh my God, what if you're right? Just who am I serving?" "I'm sorry Alan, I didn't mean to upset you,"
Yuka said, hugging him tighter. After a moment of silence, Kazuya took one of his hands and pulled it away.
"Alan, what God do you want to serve?"
he asked. His voice was gentle but firm, like the father Alan had always wanted. His foster father had been so strict, cold with his affections. The question was simple enough to answer once it was put to him.
"The forgiving God who is in the old scriptures, with the original Messiah,"
he said.
"Then you do that,"
Kazuya said.
"Teach the people about that God. I'm sure he must be out there watching over you. But if it turns out that the one who has been instructing you is not that God, you just come straight to me. I'll protect you as best I can, I swear it. Thank you, Kazuya,
Alan said, smiling and feeling like some of the burden he had was gone. He still wasn't sure who he was serving. But Kazuya was right, he should teach about the God he believed in as the one true God.
There's also something I feel you should know, as the Church's Messiah,
he said.
Are you sure about that?
Yuka asked.
He's already shouldering a lot of responsibility. It's only right that he knows, if they haven't told him already,
Kazuya said. He patted Alan's back.
There is a deadline. Sometime tomorrow, we think at dawn, but it may take time, something is going to happen. It's going to be disastrous again, and the cathedral is the only guaranteed place of safety we have. That soon.
He put both of his hands in his lap. He still hadn't called on Vishnu because they hadn't brought him around to doing that. But if that was so, that might happen soon. He nodded.
And there is something we really shouldn't be telling you, but I know that we can trust you,
he said in a low voice.
I have been working with Masakato, and in the past few days, we have been sending people to the cathedral regardless of their beliefs. We want to save the lives of as many people as possible, and that's our best option. I'm sorry, but there is really so little time that there is nothing else we can be sure of to make sure they don't die needlessly.
That cathedral was meant to house the believers of God. But... Alan nodded.
All right, I won't speak about that unless others discover it, and then only to defend those people. I promise you that. It's large enough to take in thousands and still be self-sufficient. My God would want that, I'm sure.
He rubbed his head.
And, I'm supposed to be calling on Vishnu. I don't want to say too much, but, for those who must be helping you, you may have to fight him. That's fine, I can handle a challenge like that,
Kazuya said. He was so confident. And Alan could rely on him.
I'm sure. I'm feeling better now, thanks, both of you. I think I should focus on what I can do, rather than what I think a messiah should be capable of.
Something else occurred to him.
Oh, but have you spoken to Jin recently? We spoke to him in Ikebukuro after Typhon tried us, but then he got called back into the court on some emergency, he said. We haven't seen him in the time since. I worry about both of you. I'm actually worried about him too, although I can't tell any of those around me about that,
Alan said. He took a deep breath. He needed to stay composed, because they'd expect him to be like that once they moved on.
He's going to die soon. What?
Kazuya said, alarmed at that. Alan nodded.
Haniel said he has a week at most, but if his armor cracks, then he might not have a day left. It was that demon fusion, his body's not stable. But, I can't blame him for that anymore, at least not without feeling guilty about it. He hasn't been put on the pedestal that I'm on, but I get the feeling that the Gaians and the demons with them are pressuring him just as much. It's just this feeling I have, that if fate drew all of us together, he too must have some role in all this. I can't imagine that he could easily accept that death. No, he'd be full of dread at it even if he tried acting tough, he said. We'll see if we can't find him, thanks for letting us know. I know you can help him too,
Alan said. When he got back out of the room to meet with his guards, he watched the two of them hurrying off to a terminal. Alan had been ordered to convert them fully to the Messian Church, but it felt like they had converted him instead.
Are you ready to move on now?
One of the guards said.
Yes. Wait.
He turned and was the first to notice the angel manifesting there.
Haniel, what is it? Have you converted the fulcrum yet?
Haniel asked. The guards didn't know what he was talking about. A response came to him easily this time.
That has yet to be seen, unfortunately,
Alan said.
We talked about several serious matters just now. Yet, he remains seemingly neutral in his dealings still. It may not be until the last moments that we know for sure what his loyalties are. That is unfortunate, but it seems you have done what you can,
Haniel said, neither pleased nor displeased with this.
Time is running short. You must call upon Vishnu now and then head straight for the cathedral to begin your preparations for summoning God. As God wishes,
Alan said. For what questions he had left, he needed some way to get them answered soon. End of chapter.